Benson stood visibly angry. Sophia squatted by the couch, eyes wet, hands shaking, and Adonna, the new maid, knelt in front of her, holding a strange, thin tool that looked like a needle without a sharp tip. "Please, let me try," Adonna said, voice steady but soft. Benson's jaw tightened. "This is madness." But Sophia touched his wrist and shook her head. "Benson," she said with trembling lips, "please." She could not hear her own voice, but she could read his face, his eyes, his fear. She turned to Adanna and nodded. "Do it." Adanna leaned closer, heart racing. Inside Sophia's left ear, near the inner curve, was a tiny black spot that none of them had ever noticed before. Adanna pressed the tool gently, just as she saw in her dream. The black spot shivered like a tiny bubble. Then pop. A thin white thread peeked out. Benson bent forward so fast his cap almost fell. Sophia's eyes stretched wide. Adanna took a careful breath and began to pull. The white thing kept coming, and then Sophia clutched the edge of the couch, her mouth falling open. The nightmare did not start in the living room. It started 1 year after Sophia's wedding. Before the fall, Sophia's laugh filled every corner of the mansion. She loved bright clothes and morning walks. She danced in the kitchen with Benson while stew bubbled on the fire. After the fall, the house fell silent. One rainy evening, her foot slipped on the wet staircase. She tumbled down like a broken drumroll thud. When she woke in the hospital, the world was quiet. Doctors spoke, nurses wrote, machines beeped. Sophia heard nothing. They tried hospitals in Lagos, in Abuja, even abroad. The answers returned empty. "Nerves," one doctor said. "Unknown cause," another wrote. "We can only manage it," a third whispered. Benson paid every bill with a tight smile and a breaking heart. When they came home, Sophia stopped wearing bright colors. She sat by the window and watched the gate. Sometimes tears rolled without sound. At night, she touched her ears and begged God to bring the world back. Benson tried to make life soft for her. He learned sign language and taught it to the staff. He changed the doorbell to a flashing light. He put soft runners on the stairs. He refused to give up. 2 maids came and went because Sophia feared they dressed too nicely and might steal her husband. It was not jealousy alone, it was fear. Deafness felt like darkness. In darkness, everything looks like a thief. Then came the day Benson drove home with a tired-looking girl in a dusty, torn gown. The girl stood at the door shyly, holding a small nylon bag. She was 20, skinny, with clear eyes that still had a little light. Her name was Adanna. She had finished secondary school as the best student in her set, but then her parents died months apart. Aunties argued. Uncles disappeared. House rent ended. Street life began. She learned to smile at danger and sleep with one eye open. That evening, Benson saw her near the roundabout as rain threatened. She was trying to sell groundnuts to buy food. Something about her reminded him of the way Sophia used to help people at church. Quiet, quick, with both hands. When he brought Adanna into the mansion, Sophia studied her torn gown, her dusty slippers, her careful eyes, and felt no fear, not a threat. She waved Adanna in and wrote on a notepad, "Welcome. I'm Sophia. Are you hungry?" Adanna smiled and nodded. "Yes, thank you." That night, while Benson handled calls in his home office, Sophia and Adanna sat in the sitting room with a big notebook between them. Adanna wrote slowly so Sophia could read. She told small, funny stories about selling groundnuts and dodging the rain. She wrote about the time a little girl insisted on paying with a seashell because she thought it was money. Sophia chuckled for the first time in weeks. She wrote back, "Thank you for staying with me. I like your stories." Adanna's smile grew. Days turned into a warm routine. Mornings, Adanna helped Sophia choose her outfit, even if Sophia chose a simple wrapper most times. Afternoons, they watered the flowers. Evenings, they exchanged notes. Benson would watch from the doorway, relief softening his face. He had brought a maid, but a sister had arrived. One afternoon, Sophia wrote a long note and passed it to Adanna with shaky hands. The page trembled. "I think my stepmother did this to me. Don't laugh. Before the fall, she threatened me because I stopped her from selling my father's only land. I will shut your life," she said. The next day, I fell. And this silence began. Adanna looked up, eyes sharp with concern. She did not laugh. She wrote, "I believe you. Tell me more. Sophia wrote everything. The old village, the land, the fight, the stare, the sudden quiet, the way her stepmother's eyes had looked hard and cold, like the back of a spoon. That night, sleep took Adonna in waves. She turned on the small bed in the guest room, trying to push fear away. But the story burned inside her like a candle that refused to die. At last, she slipped into a dream. In the dream, her mother stood by a calm river. Not sick, not tired, whole. The woman wore the simple wrapper she used to wear at home, the one with blue flowers. She smiled the way only mothers smile, proud and warm. Kindness will always come home, she told Adonna gently. You have given kindness, now it is coming back to you. She held out a thin, needle-like object that had no point, just a smooth tip that glowed. Your madam's ears were blocked with a wicked thing. Find the tiny black spot close to the inner ear. Nudge it softly. Then pull out the white rope. Do both ears. Don't be afraid. Adanna reached out in the dream. The tool was light as air and warm as sunlight on her palm. She woke up panting. For a moment, she lay still, listening to the quiet of the guest room, the clock tick, the hush of the AC, the distant city hum. Her eyes fell on her right hand. She almost screamed. The tool from the dream lay in her palm. She sat up, heart thudding, and stared. She turned it over. It was real. It caught the light and did not cast a shadow. She held it to her ear, no sound. Only a soft, hopeful shiver inside her chest. Morning came like a drum. Benson stepped out of the bedroom in his navy blue kaftan and red cap, briefcase ready. He kissed Sophia's forehead and squeezed her hand the way he always did. 2 short squeezes that meant I'm here. Adonna ran out of the hallway, hair a little rough from sleep, tool hidden in her hand. Sir, please wait. Benson stopped. What is it? Adonna swallowed. Her voice wanted to shake, but she kept it still. She told him everything about the dream, the river, her mother, the tool, the black spot, the white rope. Benson's face closed like a door. He had no time for magic. He had seen too many hospitals to believe in river dreams. This is hallucination, he said, trying to keep his tone calm. You're young. You've suffered. Dreams play tricks. Sophia watched his lips and read his words. She touched Adanna's sleeve and pointed to the notepad on the table. Write it. Adanna wrote fast. She gave it to Sophia. Sophia read, lips parting. She turned to Benson and grasped his wrist with both hands. Her eyes pleaded, let her try. Please. Benson looked from his wife to the girl who had brought laughter back into their evenings. He closed his eyes, then opened them. He set down his briefcase. 5 minutes, he said quietly. If anything goes wrong, we stop. Adanna nodded. Yes, sir. Sophia sat on the low couch and squatted slightly, like someone preparing to tie a wrapper. Adanna knelt in front of her, so their faces were near the same height. She held up the tool. It hummed so softly, she felt it more than heard it. Benson crouched beside them, nerves raw, eyes hard with worry. The chandelier sent bright dots across the marble like tiny stars. Do you see any spot? Adanna whispered. She looked inside Sophia's left ear. At first she saw nothing but the normal soft curves. Then she saw it. A dot, small and black, like a pepper seed tucked in a fold. There, Adanna said. Benson leaned in. He saw it too. I've never seen that before, he muttered. Adanna took a breath. She touched the black point with the tool. It gave a tiny tremble, as if it were alive, and then it popped like a soap bubble. A white string poked out, thin as thread but shiny like wet cloth. Benson inhaled sharply. What is that? His voice turned to a whisper, as if the room itself could break. Adonna pinched the white string between thumb and finger. It felt cool and smooth, not slimy, not dry. Something strange, like a cloth rolled very tight. She pulled, slow and steady, the way a nurse pulls a bandage from a wound. An inch slid out, then 2, then 3. Sophia grabbed the couch cushion and squeezed, eyes wide, breathing fast. Her eyes darted between Benson's face and Adonna's hands. Benson's cap slipped to one side, but he did not fix it. He could not look away. His entire world had become this thin white rope. Adonna kept pulling slow, careful, prayer in her chest. The thread did not break. It did not end. Somewhere, deep inside the house, a phone started to ring. The white rope slid, longer, longer. Sophia's mouth fell open, and the chandelier light flashed across her eyes as she sucked in a breath. The sound came like thunder breaking through glass. "I can hear!" Sophia screamed, her voice trembling with disbelief. "I can hear you!" Her own voice startled her, soft, raw, and alive after a whole year of silence. She clutched her ears, shaking as if her body didn't know how to contain the sound. Her husband froze where he knelt, his eyes wide, his mouth parting in pure shock. "Wait, what did you say?" Benson whispered, his voice breaking. Sophia's lips quivered. "I said I can hear you." Her words spilled out again, louder, clearer. "Oh my God, I can hear you." She jumped up from the couch, hugging Benson so tightly the briefcase he had dropped earlier clattered to the floor. Tears streamed down her face. She laughed and cried at the same time, her body shaking. "Benson, I can hear. I can hear everything." Adanna, still kneeling, stared at her trembling hands. The tool glowed faintly in her palm, and the long white thread lay curled on the floor like a tiny snake. She didn't know whether to cry or run. What she had seen in her dream was now real, completely real. Benson finally turned to Adanna, his voice low and heavy. You did this?" Adanna nodded slowly, eyes still wet. "Sir, I just did what my mother told me in the dream." For a moment, no one moved. The ticking of the wall clock filled the silence. Then Sophia suddenly gasped. "Wait, my other ear," she said, her voice shaking with urgency. "The right one, please, Adanna, please." Benson helped her sit again, his hands trembling. "Are you sure you want to continue?" he asked, his tone a mix of fear and wonder. "Yes," Sophia said. "Please do it now." Adanna picked up the glowing needle again, her fingers trembling. Benson knelt beside them once more. This time, Sophia didn't flinch. She trusted the girl completely. Adanna leaned close to her other ear. The same tiny black dot was there hidden deep near the inner curve. She touched it gently. Pop. The same faint hiss. Another white thread peeked out. This time, Sophia felt a deep sting in her ear, and a sudden ringing sound followed like bells clashing together. Benson held her hand tight as she groaned in pain. Adanna pulled slowly, carefully, whispering a prayer under her breath. Almost there. Almost. When the second thread finally came out, Sophia's whole body went still. Then her eyes filled with tears again. "Benson," she whispered, "I can hear everything now. The clock, the birds outside, even my heartbeat." Benson couldn't hold back anymore. He threw his arms around her and began to sob. "Thank you, Jesus," he cried. "Thank you. Thank you." He turned to Adanna, his face drenched in tears. You've done what no doctor, no hospital could do. God used you." Adanna lowered her head humbly. "Sir, I only did what I was told." Sophia pulled her close, embracing her tightly. "You're not just my maid, Adanna. You're my angel." The three of them stayed that way, wrapped in tears and disbelief, as sunlight poured through the window like a blessing. For the first time in a long while, the house was filled with laughter again. Hours later, the news spread through the mansion like wildfire. The driver, the gardener, the gatekeeper all stood outside the living room door, whispering, "Madam can hear again," one said in awe. "It's a miracle." Benson sent everyone back to their duties, though he himself could hardly believe it. He walked around the house as if afraid to wake up from a dream. Sophia followed him everywhere, smiling, talking non-stop, amazed at how strange her own voice sounded after a year of silence. But while Benson and Sophia rejoiced, Adanna sat alone in her small room, staring at the glowing needle on her bed. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. "Kindness will always come home." Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock. "Come in," she said. Sophia stepped into the room, her hair tied in a silk scarf, a soft wrapper around her shoulders. Her eyes were still swollen from crying. "You've been quiet," she said softly. Adanna smiled faintly. I don't understand any of this. How could something like that be in your ear?" Sophia sat beside her. "I've been asking myself the same question," she whispered. "But maybe it was never medical. Maybe it was spiritual." Her voice trembled as she continued, "Adanna, before I fell from those stairs, my stepmother told me she would shut my life forever. I thought it was just anger, But now I'm sure she did something terrible to me. Adanna looked up, heart pounding. Then maybe the thing I removed was what she planted to make you deaf. Sophia nodded slowly, fear creeping into her eyes. But if that's true, how did she do it? How can something spiritual become physical? Adanna hesitated, gripping the edge of her wrapper. My mother used to say some curses are hidden in the body like invisible chains. Once you find the lock, you can break them. Sophia shivered. Then, maybe you found the lock. Before Adanna could reply, Benson's voice echoed from the living room. Sophia, your phone's ringing. Sophia smiled and stood up. She left the room, humming softly to herself, a sound that made Adanna's heart warm. She picked up the phone and answered. Hello? It was Sandra, her stepsister, crying on the other end. Sophia, something terrible just happened. Sophia frowned. What's wrong? Mama is dead, Sandra sobbed. She started shouting that her ears were burning. She screamed and screamed, saying something was being pulled out of her head. Then she fell and died before we could do anything. Sophia froze. What did you say? It just happened now. Sandra wept. I don't understand, sister. She just kept shouting about her ears. Sophia's phone slipped from her trembling hand. The call ended. She stood still, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it echo inside her skull. Benson rushed to her side. What's wrong? He asked. She turned to him slowly, eyes wide. My stepmother, she's dead. What? She died screaming about her ears burning, Sophia whispered. Just after Adanna pulled the white thread out of mine, the entire room went cold. Adanna, who had just entered, stopped mid-step. Their eyes met. None of them said a word for a long moment. Then Adanna spoke softly, her voice shaking. Sir, madam, she died because the thing she planted in you was removed. Benson swallowed hard, his throat dry. I mean, Adanna said, her voice trembling. That curse left her body when it left your ears. Sophia burst into tears again, half relief, half shock. Benson held her, rubbing her back gently. The weight of what had just happened began to sink in. It wasn't just healing, it was justice. Later that evening, Sophia went down on her knees before Adanna. I don't know how to thank you, she said through tears. You didn't just give me my hearing back, you gave me my life back. Adanna knelt too, her own eyes wet. Please, madam, don't kneel for me. But Sophia shook her head. You're not my maid anymore. From today, you're my daughter. Benson smiled through tears. And I agree, he said warmly. From this moment, Adanna Solomon, welcome home. The three of them embraced again, this time with pure peace filling the room. Outside, the sun slowly faded behind the mansion, casting a golden glow across the windows. And for the first time in a very long time, the house that once held silence now sang with laughter, hope, and gratitude. But while joy filled the air, Adanna couldn't stop thinking about one thing, the glowing needle. That night, as she placed it carefully inside her drawer, it flickered faintly once more, as if it still had work left to do. Rain tapped softly against the glass windows that night. The whole mansion glowed with warmth, candles flickered, soft jazz played from the living room speakers, and for the first time in almost 2 years, Sophia hummed along to the music she could finally hear again. Benson watched her from the couch, his heart swelling with gratitude. You look beautiful when you smile, he said softly. Sophia turned, her face glowing. I'd forgotten what sound feels like, she said, laughing. Even the rain sounds like music now. She looked over at Adanna, who was sitting quietly by the flower vase, polishing a silver tray. Adanna, come here. Adanna walked over shyly. Sophia took her hand. You're not my maid anymore. From today, you'll sleep in the guest suite upstairs, not the servants' quarters. Adanna's eyes widened. Madam, I don't deserve. Stop calling me madam, Sophia interrupted gently. Call me Sister Sophia. You've earned that right. Benson smiled. And tomorrow, I'll take you to the university to start your admission process. You said you wanted to study robotics engineering, right? Adanna's mouth fell open. Yes, sir. But how did you? I asked around. Benson chuckled. You were the best student in your secondary school. You shouldn't be wasting that mind polishing trays. Tears rolled down Adanna's cheeks. Sir, I don't even know what to say. Just promise you'll make us proud. Benson said, smiling. I will, Adanna whispered. I promise." They spent the rest of the evening together, laughing and telling stories. It was the happiest the house had felt in years, but as night deepened, Adonna couldn't sleep. She kept turning in bed, her thoughts spinning. The strange needle, the one her mother gave her in the dream, lay on her bedside table. Every time she looked at it, she saw its faint glow. It pulsed slowly, like it was breathing. Her mother's voice echoed faintly in her mind. "Kindness will always come home." Suddenly, Adonna felt the air shift. The curtains fluttered, even though the windows were closed. A soft golden mist filled the room. She sat up quickly, clutching her blanket. Then she saw her mother standing by the door, smiling, glowing faintly in the soft light. "Mama?" Adonna whispered, trembling. Her mother nodded. "You've done well, my child," she said. Her voice was gentle, like a song Adonna used to fall asleep to as a child. "You freed an innocent soul and returned peace to a broken home. Is not finding the destructions committed?" Adonna's eyes filled with tears. "Mama, why did this happen to me? Why did you choose me?" Her mother's smile softened. "Because you still believe in kindness, even after pain. Heaven works through clean hearts, not strong hands." Adonna looked at the glowing needle. "Mama, it's still shining. What does it mean?" Her mother stepped closer. "It's not just for Sophia. You were chosen to bring healing where pain hides. This gift isn't from me, it's from the one who sent me." Adonna's heart raced. "But Mama, I'm scared. What if I use it wrong?" Her mother touched her forehead lightly. "When the time comes, your heart will know. Use it only when love leads you." The golden mist brightened, wrapping her mother's figure like smoke rising to the ceiling. "Mama! Wait, don't go!" Adonna cried. Her mother's voice faded gently. "Remember, my child, kindness will always come home." And just like that, she was gone. Adonna sat frozen on her bed, breathing fast. The room was quiet again. The glow of the needle dimmed to a faint shimmer. She held it close to her chest and whispered, "I'll never forget." The next morning, Benson and Sophia kept their promise. They drove Adonna to the university to start her admission process. The sun was bright, Lagos traffic loud, but Adonna couldn't stop smiling. It all felt like a dream she was afraid to wake up from. At the registration office, the clerk looked at her papers. "You got scholarship approval from Benson Foundation already?" Adonna blinked. "Sir?" Benson smiled beside her. "I set up a scholarship for her this morning. Full tuition, books, and accommodation. She deserves it." The clerk handed her the stamped form. "You're officially admitted." Tears filled her eyes again as she hugged them both. "I won't let you down. I promise." Weeks passed, and life in the mansion bloomed with joy. Sophia's laughter became the heartbeat of the house again. She organized charity events for the deaf community, telling her story to inspire others. "Sometimes," she would say on stage, "the people we help are the ones sent to save us." Adonna began her classes, always coming home on weekends to visit. Every time she returned, Sophia would run to the gate just to hear the sound of her voice again. Benson, meanwhile, became quieter. He often stood by the window at night, staring at the moon with gratitude and something else. One evening, while Adonna was at the university, Benson noticed Sophia sitting by the balcony alone. "Why are you out here?" "It's cold," he said, handing her a shawl. Sophia smiled faintly. "Do you ever think about what really happened that day?" He hesitated. "You mean when Adonna healed you?" "Yes," she said softly. "I keep thinking about that white thread she pulled out. What if something like that is happening to someone else right now?" Benson sighed, resting his hand on hers. "We can't explain everything, Sophia. Some things are beyond science or reason. Maybe God wanted to teach us faith." Sophia nodded, staring into the night. "But I can't stop wondering, what if there are others like me?" A week later, that question found its answer. Adonna returned home on a Friday evening, carrying her school bag and a small gift for Sophia. As soon as she stepped inside the mansion, she felt something off. The air was heavy. The servants were whispering. "Where's Madame Sophia?" she asked the driver. He looked pale. "She's in the bedroom. She's been sick since morning. The doctor said it's nothing, but she's been hearing strange voices." Adonna dropped her bag and ran upstairs. Sophia was sitting on the bed, clutching her ears. "Adonna," she cried, "they're whispering again. I can hear people screaming, but there's no one here." Benson paced the room nervously. I've called the doctor. He said it might be stress, but Adanna stepped closer. Madam, please, let me see. Sophia shook her head violently. No, not again. I can't go through that pain again. Please, Adanna said softly. Trust me. Just like before. Benson looked at Adanna, his eyes filled with old fear. You think it's the same thing? I don't know, Adanna whispered. But my heart says something isn't right. She took out the glowing needle from her pocket. It had started shining again since she entered the house. Sophia froze when she saw it. That's the same tool from before. Adanna nodded slowly. Mama once told me, when it glows, someone needs healing. Sophia closed her eyes and took a trembling breath. Then do it. Adanna leaned close to Sophia's ear again. This time, there was no black spot, but the glow from the needle brightened the entire room. As Adanna touched it gently to Sophia's temple, a warm light spread across her face. Sophia gasped, her eyes widening as if she saw something invisible before her, and then she fell still. Adanna! Benson shouted, grabbing his wife's shoulders. What happened? Adanna looked terrified. She's breathing, but she's somewhere else. Sophia's lips began to move slowly, whispering something faint, something that made Adanna's blood run cold. She's here. The woman from the mirror. She's watching me. Benson's face drained of color. What woman? Sophia's voice dropped to a trembling whisper. My stepmother. The light from the needle flickered once, then went out completely. The room fell silent, and in the corner of the mirror beside the bed, a faint shadow moved. The night felt heavier than usual. Rain pattered softly against the mansion's glass windows. Thunder growled in the far distance, and the lights flickered twice before settling into a pale yellow glow. Sophia sat still on the bed, her eyes blank, breathing shallowly. Benson held her hands tightly, fear crawling through his veins. Sophia? Talk to me, he whispered. Adanna stood frozen beside the bed, clutching the faintly glowing needle. The air in the room was cold, unnaturally cold, as if someone had opened a door to another world. Sophia, Benson repeated, shaking her gently. Then her lips moved. Her voice came out different, older, heavier. Why did you break my curse? Benson's heart stopped. What did you say? Adanna's hands trembled. That wasn't Sophia's voice. It was deep, filled with bitterness and rage. Sophia's head tilted slightly, and her pupils shrank. You think you can undo what I started? She whispered. You took away what was mine, and now you'll pay for it. Benson stumbled backward, eyes wide. That's her stepmother's voice. Adanna felt a chill run down her spine. Madam, please, fight it, she said softly, moving closer. Sophia's head snapped toward her. The smile that spread across her lips wasn't Sophia's, it was sharp, cruel. You again, the voice hissed. The little orphan. You meddled where you shouldn't have. Benson stepped between them. Leave her alone. But Sophia, or rather, whatever was speaking through her, laughed bitterly. She belongs to me now. At that moment, the bedroom light burst with a loud pop, throwing the room into near darkness. Only the faint lightning flashing through the window illuminated the horror on Sophia's face. Adanna clutched the glowing needle tighter, whispering a prayer under her breath. She remembered her mother's words, "Use it only when love leads you." Taking a deep breath, she stepped closer. "If you're truly her stepmother," she said, voice steady, "then you should know how much she suffered because of you. Let her go." The voice inside Sophia laughed again. "She chose her fate when she defied me. Then face me instead," Adanna said, lifting the glowing needle slightly. For a second, the laughter stopped. The eyes in Sophia's face widened, and her voice dropped to a hiss. "That needle, where did you get that?" Adanna's heart pounded, but she answered boldly. "It was given to me by my mother, the one your darkness could never touch." Sophia's body jerked violently. She let out a sharp scream that made the chandelier above tremble. "No!" she roared. "That light burns." Benson reached for Adanna. "What's happening to her?" "Hold her, sir," Adanna said quickly. "Don't let go." Benson moved behind his wife, wrapping his arms around her shoulders as Sophia's body thrashed. Adanna held the needle near Sophia's forehead, and a bright light poured out, washing the room in gold. The shadow in the mirror began to shift. Slowly, a dark mist spilled out from the glass, forming a faint silhouette of an old woman, thin, wrinkled, and sneering. Sophia screamed again, clutching her head. "Get it out of me!" Adanna stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "You've done enough harm," she cried. "Leave her alone." The dark figure hissed, "You think you can command me, child?" Adanna's hand shook, but her voice grew stronger. "I'm not commanding you, I'm freeing her." She pressed the needle gently to Sophia's temple. A blinding light erupted so bright that Benson had to cover his eyes. There was a sound, half a scream, half a gust of wind, and the dark mist burst apart into ashes of shadow that scattered across the room like black sand. Sophia went limp in Benson's arms. For a terrifying moment, the mansion went silent. Then Sophia gasped loudly and fell forward, sobbing uncontrollably. "It's gone," she whispered between tears. "Oh God, it's gone." Benson held her tightly. "You're safe now," he whispered over and over, kissing her forehead. "You're safe." Adonna collapsed to her knees, trembling from exhaustion. The needle fell from her hand, still glowing faintly. She looked up, tears filling her eyes. "Thank you, Mama," she whispered. By morning, the storm had cleared, and sunlight poured into the room. Sophia slept peacefully for the first time in days. Benson stood by the window, deep in thought. Adanna entered quietly, her hair tied up, face pale but calm. "Sir," she said softly, "she's free now. I can feel it." Benson nodded slowly. "You've saved her again, Adanna. Twice. I don't even know how to thank you." Adanna smiled faintly. "Sir, you don't need to. I'm just grateful she's alive." He studied her for a moment. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "sometimes I wonder who you really are." Adanna looked confused. "Sir, since you came into this house, everything changed. My wife was healed, peace returned, even I feel different. It's like God sent you here for a reason." Adanna lowered her gaze. Maybe he did. Over the next few weeks, Sophia recovered completely. She spent her mornings tending to the garden again, singing softly while Adanna helped her with breakfast. Benson, on the other hand, started reading more about spiritual healings. He wanted to understand what had truly happened that night. One afternoon, he called Adanna into his study. On the table lay a box of documents. "I've decided something," he said. "I want to set up a foundation in your name, the Adanna Foundation for the Homeless and the Sick." Adanna's eyes widened. "Sir, Benson raised a hand. "Listen. You've done something even the richest doctors couldn't. You gave people hope. This foundation will do the same for others." Tears welled in Adanna's eyes. "Sir, thank you. I don't even know how to deserve this." Benson smiled warmly. "You've already earned it. But peace never stays too long when destiny is involved." That night, Adanna dreamed again. She stood in the same golden light by the river. But this time, her mother's face was not calm. It was worried. "My child," her mother said urgently, "you've awakened a gift greater than you know. But gifts like this attract darkness." Adanna frowned. "What do you mean, Mama?" "There are others," her mother whispered. "People who will try to use you, who will come smiling but hide shadows in their hearts. Be careful who you trust." Adanna's heart raced. "But I only use the needle when it glows." Her mother shook her head. "Soon, you will not need it. The power will live in you. But remember, never heal for pride or money, only for love." Before Adanna could ask more, the golden river began to ripple violently, and her mother's figure faded. She woke up gasping, the glow from the needle now gone completely. 2 weeks later, Sophia and Benson threw a small celebration at the mansion. Friends, neighbors, and charity partners gathered to thank God for her healing and for the launch of the Adanna Foundation. The air buzzed with laughter and music. Adanna stood shyly near the corner, wearing a simple cream gown Sophia had bought her. Everyone kept turning to smile at her and whisper, "That's the girl who healed Madame Sophia." As the speeches began, Sophia took the microphone. Her voice rang clear and strong. "A year ago, I thought my life was over. But today, I stand here not only hearing the world again, but feeling it. And all because a poor, kind girl chose compassion over comfort." She turned to Adanna, tears shining in her eyes. "My daughter, this day belongs to you." The crowd clapped loudly. Adanna's heart filled with warmth. After the event, as the guests began to leave, Benson noticed a man standing at the gate, tall, dressed in black, watching quietly. His face was calm but unreadable. Benson walked over. "Can I help you?" The man smiled faintly. You can call me Pastor Emmanuel. I came to meet the girl they call the Miracle Maid. Benson hesitated. Adanna? Why? I've heard stories, the man said softly. And I've seen signs. The kind of gift she carries is not just human. She needs guidance before the wrong eyes find her. Benson frowned. What wrong eyes? The man looked at the sky, his expression suddenly dark. The ones that hide in light. Before Benson could ask another question, the man smiled again and handed him a card. Tell her I'll be waiting if she ever feels the world turning heavy again. Then he walked away, disappearing into the quiet street. Benson turned the card over. It read, Emmanuel Faith Ministries, Deliverance and Inner Light. He stood there for a long time, staring at the name. Back inside the mansion, Adonna laughed with Sophia as they packed the gifts from the guests. She didn't see Benson standing by the window, card in hand, his face clouded with silent worry. Outside, the night wind carried a whisper through the open gate, soft, almost human. The night of the Foundation's celebration slowly faded into a peaceful dawn. The storm that once haunted the mansion was gone for good. For the first time in years, Sophia and Benson felt the quiet peace of answered prayers, and Adanna, the girl who once slept on the streets, had become the heartbeat of their new beginning. The next morning, Sophia and Benson invited Adanna into the living room. The glow of sunrise poured through the curtains, bathing the marble floor in soft gold. Benson's eyes were filled with emotion as he gestured for her to sit. Adanna, he began, his voice heavy but gentle. You came into our lives when we least expected it. You gave us what no doctor, no money, no prayer before you could give hope. Sophia smiled through tears. You brought light into our darkness. You're not our maid anymore. You're our daughter. Adanna froze, her mouth trembling. Daughter? Yes, Sophia said, her voice firm but full of love. From today, your surname will be Benson. You'll never be homeless again. Tears flooded Adanna's eyes as she dropped to her knees, holding Sophia's hands. Thank you, Mama. Thank you, Daddy, she whispered, trembling with gratitude. Benson knelt beside them and placed his hands on her shoulders. No, my dear. Thank God, not us. He sent you to heal us, and now, we're a family. That day, the entire mansion came alive. Laughter replaced silence, and joy found its way into every corner. The papers were signed within weeks. Adanna Benson officially became their daughter. 2 years later, something miraculous happened. Sophia, who doctors had told could never conceive again after her accident, began feeling dizzy and nauseous. She thought it was exhaustion. But when the doctor smiled during her checkup and said, Madam, you're 3 months pregnant, her heart nearly stopped. When Benson heard the news, he shouted so loudly that the entire staff came running. Sophia is pregnant, he announced with tears in his eyes. That night, they called Adanna on video call. She was in her hostel, surrounded by books. When Sophia broke the news, Adanna covered her mouth in shock. Mama, you're serious? Yes, my dear, Sophia said, laughing through tears. God has answered our prayers. Adanna cried openly, her face glowing through the phone's screen. This is God, Mama. This is the happiness you deserve. Months later, Sophia gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him David Benson. When Adanna came home for the holidays, she ran straight into the hospital room, her school bag still on her shoulder. Sophia lay on the bed, exhausted but glowing, and Benson stood proudly beside her, holding the newborn. Adanna's legs trembled as she approached. When Sophia placed the baby in her arms, she broke into tears. He's so tiny, she whispered, smiling through the sobs. Sophia touched her cheek gently. This is your little brother, Adanna. You brought him to us. You're the reason I can hear him cry, the reason he's here. Benson nodded. You brought happiness into our lives, and now God has multiplied it. Adanna held the baby tighter, her tears falling on his soft blanket. Welcome to the world, David, she whispered. You're a miracle. That night, as the family gathered for dinner, Sophia looked across the table at Adanna. You see, my daughter, kindness always comes home. You gave us kindness, and God gave it back through this little one. 4 years passed, like a gentle dream. Adanna graduated from the university as the best graduating student in robotics engineering, standing on the grand stage in her black gown as the hall erupted in applause. Sophia and Benson sat proudly in the front row, holding hands and crying as Adanna received her award. That's my daughter, Sophia whispered with a trembling voice. My miracle. After graduation, Adonna got hired by an international tech company in Lagos. Her talent and creativity quickly made her a rising star. Within 2 years, she was managing her own team and earning more than she ever imagined possible. With her first big bonus, she bought her parents a luxury SUV. With her second, she bought herself a new mansion in Banana Island, a house built not from luck, but from grace. Every weekend, she visited Sophia, Benson, and little David. Their house was always filled with laughter, Sophia singing while cooking, David playing with toys on the rug, and Adanna helping Benson fix the family's smart home devices. This, Benson would say every time, is what happiness looks like. Fate, however, wasn't done writing her story. One bright morning during a trade fair in Abuja, Adanna was invited to speak about robotics and artificial intelligence in Africa. After her talk, a man approached her tall, dark-skinned, with a neat beard and warm smile. He wore a navy blue suit and carried himself with quiet confidence. "Your presentation was incredible," he said. "I'm Jacob, a software engineer from Tech Labs." Adanna smiled politely. "Thank you, Jacob. I'm Adanna Benson." He laughed softly. "Oh, I know. The woman who built the smart aid hand prototype for disabled users. My entire office talks about it." Their conversation flowed easily, one laugh after another. By the end of the day, they exchanged numbers. Over the next few weeks, they couldn't stop talking. They shared dreams, ideas, and faith. When Adanna introduced Jacob to her parents, Benson welcomed him warmly while Sophia's eyes sparkled with joy. "He reminds me of someone," she whispered to her husband later that night. "He looks at her the way you looked at me when we were young." A few months later, Jacob proposed. The wedding was grand, but filled with heartfelt moments. Sophia, dressed in elegant silver lace, walked Adanna down the aisle with tears streaming down her face. "You'll always be my miracle," she whispered as the church organ played softly. Little David, now 4 years old, walked ahead of them, dropping lilies along the red carpet. The crowd smiled and clapped as Adanna met Jacob at the altar, her eyes glowing with joy. The newlyweds began their new life together, full of dreams and laughter. But after 2 years, the smiles began to fade. No pregnancy, no child. The doctors said nothing was wrong with either of them. It was just time. But time began to feel like a wall. Adanna cried silently some nights, sitting by the window and staring at the moon. "Mama said kindness always comes home," she whispered to herself. "So why is it taking so long?" Jacob would hold her hand and whisper, "We'll be fine. Our love will bring our miracle home." Sophia and Benson remained her strongest support. Whenever she visited, Sophia would pull her close and say, "My daughter, you can't be unhappy in marriage when you are the source of our happiness. God's timing is perfect." 3 years later, one quiet morning, Adanna felt something she hadn't felt in years, a flutter of life within her. Tears filled her eyes as the doctor smiled and confirmed it. "Congratulations, Mrs. Jacob. You're pregnant." The joy that followed was beyond words. She called her parents immediately. Sophia screamed so loudly that Benson dropped his glasses. "She's pregnant," she cried, laughing through her tears. 9 months later, Adanna gave birth to twin boys, healthy, strong, and beautiful. They named them Jerry and Jeremy. When Sophia and Benson arrived at the hospital, their eyes overflowed with tears as they held the babies for the first time. Sophia's hands trembled as she looked at her daughter. "Adanna," she whispered, "you'll never stop being our miracle." Benson smiled, placing a gentle hand on Adanna's shoulder. "You brought happiness into our lives, and God will keep multiplying it in yours." As the twins slept peacefully in their grandmother's arms, Adanna closed her eyes, overwhelmed by gratitude. Her mind drifted back to her mother's words in that golden dream long ago. Kindness will always come home. Now, surrounded by her husband, her parents, and her children, she finally understood it had. And from that moment, she vowed to spend the rest of her life spreading that same kindness to others, just as it once saved her. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.